Hi, welcome to History Beyond Virginia's Textbooks. My name is Rohit, and today we're going to discuss the history of Virginia's architecture.
Hey, I'm Sid Cope.
I'm Sid Pham.
And I'm Kira Hosling. We're going to be the co-hosts of the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Richmond was one of the first cities built by the Europeans once they had come to America.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense. Virginia was one of the first.
It is
colonies.
Richmond,
Jamestown,
you know.
Yeah.
Is that it? Okay.
But I'm sure the architecture wasn't as built up as it is now.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure, especially coming from, England and Spain,
there was a lot of, probably, architectural draw from European countries.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of it was destroyed during, the Revolutionary War and the Civil War.
Yeah, so they tried to, get away.
As the main hub for a lot of the Confederacy.
Exactly. It was the
In
capital.
the Civil War.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not Revolution.
Slave.
That's Civil War.
Well, I said Civil War and...
Hey, it applies
yeah.
still, it applies.
Yeah. I'm sure that the Confederacy, being the hub for the Confederacy, helped in destroying the architecture that was previously there from the,
Yeah.
Hey, you got the point down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, early on, the Richmonders, they used colonial and neoclassical styles for most of their architecture, where colonial styles were very basic buildings, just so they could get by.
I mean, yeah, because it's not like the colonists were
They're not
typically rich.
making tourist attractions,
Yeah, they were just kind of trying to make a settlement so they could exist.
Definitely not at this point. They weren't trying to draw in the wow factor. That wasn't really a thing. They were just trying to survive.
Yeah, they were just
Yeah.
we need to live.
Yeah.
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 And the Americans early on really hated the English, so they also reflected that hatred through their architecture by rejecting English traditional architecture. They really embraced French architecture because they loved the French. Right?
Yeah, that probably goes back to the French Revolution and everything, and how they were also drifting more towards democratic values and kind of had similar.
At least abroad.
Things.
At least abroad, yeah.
Yeah.
Because in France that wasn't happening.
Well, yeah.
The monarchy
But,
reigned in France for so long.
When there was because the French Revolution was inspired by the American Revolution, so as you get later on, it's more of just mutual support, especially in the Revolution.
Yeah, until the main squabble between England and France, and then it became just we're actually pretty neutral. Sorry guys, we're not going to let England
We don't actually
appeasement
because of Washington's neutrality.
Yeah.
act, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Farewell address.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
true.
I watched
Because we all
Hamilton.
remember that.
Yeah. So I'm gonna jump ahead 100 years after the Civil War. That's when after the first Industrial Revolution and the second Industrial Revolution is starting to make an impact on America. So Gilded Age, people are starting to get rich. Like you guys said, they weren't rich enough to make big buildings, and now they are rich, and they're really embracing Victorian and Neo-Gothic buildings. Big, huge castles that look really cool.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
There's a
you
lot
can
of-
see that outside of Richmond
Yeah.
too.
No,
Yeah, it's still around. It's,
And even
there's-
Virginia Tech.
yeah.
Tech. Tech is something different, but if you're talking specifically about Richmond, if you go inside of the city of Richmond or even around the campus of VCU, there'll be little
Tiny castle.
bits of really neoclassic architecture that's churches and stuff that are used for weddings and all that kind of stuff. There's just these little there's a bell tower or something
Next to the,
somewhere, and
Oh, continue.
yeah, and it's just it's a really weird amalgamation. It's an amalgamation of different designs because sometimes you have the brutalist architecture in the art buildings. There's a lot of brutalism in the art buildings,
And those were built later on as you get more towards modernism.
Probably around the 80s, I would assume.
Yeah, more postmodernism.
Postmodernism, and that created a lot of brutalism. And there's a lot of remnants of that in a lot of the art buildings, at least. And then, yeah, like I said, there's a lot of like neoclassic churches and places to hold ceremonies and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting. I've seen them try to kind of like restore or like keep some of the older architecture as people start to like kind of like appreciate it a little bit more in like a wider sense. Like I remember going to VCU Hospital and they were rebuilding a building right next door that was more of like a Gothic style.
Yeah.
And they were trying to like repair it and restore it to what it was and kind of trying to actually
really?
hold the history.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
there's an
There.
entire like castle in Richmond. It's gigantic. It's got
Yeah.
all the pointy roofs and everything.
Yeah, I'm sure they're trying
The
to
turrets?
preserve all of that.
I don't know what it's called.
Okay. Cool. I didn't know that. I didn't know they were trying to preserve those kind of things.
Yeah, no.
But it makes sense.
Yeah, they definitely are now.
Yeah.
Before they were like,
I know, that's ugly.
yeah, they didn't really care.
This doesn't serve us anymore.
Yeah,
Therefore, it's actually not necessary.
Actually.
because nowadays it's both preserving old traditions and coming up with new stuff. Before, like, I don't know, a couple hundred years ago maybe, it was let's tear down all the old stuff, build new things, modernize the whole world.
Yeah,
all
and
that.
that kind of speaks to like the whole world's transition of trying to kind of like respect the past more. I mean, like,
Yeah.
especially in European cultures, specifically in like
Yeah.
America,
Yeah.
they never really respected the past as much as maybe other places or other times. And now people are kind of starting to return to that and realize, like, oh crap, our history is kind of important.
Yeah, they're not trying to erase history anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, like, only recent. I feel like within only the past couple hundred years, history has become important.
Yeah.
So-
Before it was just like, I mean,
Until it was just like a thing.
well, yeah, I mean, and you have like the lack of concrete detail that was previously known because it was just like myths. And that's
The
how we
Bible.
get the fairy tale. Well,
Yeah.
yes, the Bible, and that was kind of just like an amalgamation. Oh my God, there it is again.
Oh my God.
A grouping of stories. And so we didn't really have the history to look back on anymore. But since we do have textbooks and we do have these different resources now, I feel like there's definitely more of a passion to learn about history. 'Cause
Yeah.
There's more of an opportunity to. There's more behind it now. There's more than, the interesting bits that your brain picks up.
Yeah.
I mean,
the
especially
stories.
with public history now, it's also much more available for anyone to find it online or go to a public library or some
The,
places.
the internet has definitely widened the perspective of everybody ever, and like
Yeah.
the amount of history that we can access is
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people were trying to like erase history and teaching certain parts of history to like make their country more patriotic or something.
Yeah.
And there's a lot less of that. Might be for the better, might be for the worse. We
Blind
don't know.
nationalism.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
Anyway, architecture.
yeah. So after
I mean, this is what we wanted from the podcast. Just
Yeah.
kind of go off and talk
Yeah,
about
whatever. It's fine.
after we went through our phase of Victorian and Neo-Gothic architecture, we started to go back in time a few older styles, like old French architecture, neoclassical.
What era was that? Like year-wise?
This was like early 1900s, late 1800s.
So kind of what it's making me think of is like romanticism and how people started to kind of like
Yeah.
romanticize the past.
Yeah.
Especially nowadays, we're seeing that again as much as in the early 1900s
Yeah.
of like romanticizing like, oh, this is what life would have been like. It must have
Bridgerton.
been so cool.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
Americans romanticizing is
Dude, yeah, no, that's just
Timeless.
like our thing. I
yeah.
don't know
No,
why
it's
that-
our.
But I also feel like that's kind of just like a human thing.
That's
Yeah.
I feel like humans just really like to
because like we
romanticize
can't
things.
ever love what we have already.
No,
that's not possible.
That's not,
The
Yeah.
grass is always greener on the other side.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, politically, during that era was like progressivism. So maybe, that was like more liberal stuff. Maybe they were also trying to, like as we are today, trying to preserve old styles and things. So yeah. And then after that,
Really, that's crazy.
so
That is absolutely bonkers.
yeah, a lot of architects were disagreeing during that time period, doing old stuff, doing current stuff, trying to do new things. But then finally, years later, they start to connect and they start to modernize all of Richmond, like we said earlier. So, they were probably destroying some old buildings, making new modern buildings. So this was during like 1950s, 1980s, Cold War era kind of.
Especially like pop art and all of that, and how
Yeah.
all of that
Yeah.
stuff coming out in architecture too.
Yeah, like hippies and trying to be more modern than Soviet Union, trying to be better than everyone else.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Everyone's goal.
yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah, we can't all just be on equal levels. We have to be on top of
We have to be
everybody.
better.
Yeah.
Not only can we have the same thing, but we have to be better.
We had it's necessary.
I mean, how else will society progress if we're not
Exactly.
better than everyone?
exactly. That's what I'm
American
saying.
exceptionalism. It's kind of just all over the place.
All the isms.
All over the place.
Okay.
Right.
All the isms.
So yeah, and then following that, Richmond started turning towards like even more modern architecture, like today's architecture. What do we call it? Contemporary. Yeah. Because like modernism was right before that.
I don't know.
I think so.
Rustic farmhouse. HGTV.
Oh yeah.
It's gonna be a big barn. Hey guys, so actually our lecture hall is just this barn in the middle of Richmond.
You heard it was the Pinterest
wouldn't even-
aesthetic.
That wouldn't even be out of the ordinary for your average American.
VCU,
wouldn't.
they're just like, yeah, man, my physics lecture is kind of just in a barn somewhere.
Yeah.
It doesn't really have a Promethean board or anything.
There's
We
like-
just kind of talk.
Yeah.
There's 4 walls.
The cows are our desks.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We sit on hay bales.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
There's stupid centerpieces that are like
The mason
Pinterest-
jars?
Yeah, the mason jar centerpieces.
Like our band banquet.
Yeah, it's like our band banquet.
Yeah, and also during this time period, people were not only making buildings to house people, but people started just making things, making art,
Yeah.
just to sit there. And there was one guy, he was building like an entire like weird looking circle, weird looking sphere
Wow.
that wasn't perfectly connected, out of aluminum. Bit of a waste of resources, if you ask me.
It's
Like,
art. It's what's the word?
Well, that's
conceptual.
that's the
Valid.
question of like sustainability, because there's free expression, which is something that a lot of Richmond really holds, but then there's also the other side of Richmond, which is starkly liberal and like we have to conserve every single bit of energy ever because the planet is dying, which is
That's valid.
which
That's
is
a valid fear.
It's valid. But you also have the conversation of like, okay, are we going to spend precious resources making stuff and using it for artistic expression, or are we going to sit there and let these resources probably not be used as effectively as they could be?
I mean,
Yeah,
we could definitely like rebuild things to make it more sustainable
Agreed.
and like do things that are more eco-friendly if
Yeah.
we just rebuilt what we
Yeah,
have.
you can also like repurpose buildings.
Yeah.
And it's also like at what point do you cross from like conservationism and trying to like do your best to preserve stuff into just like flat out controlling resources and like
yeah.
that type of stuff that like
Yeah.
you often see with like, I mean, this is heavily political, poor analogy, but like with like communist type of things where like they start controlling the resources and then
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
where it starts.
Yeah.
These were the exact discussions people had, and a lot of people are mad at this guy for making this stuff. And then eventually, I think it was repurposed into an office. It's a
Okay, well,
it's a
there we
spherical
go.
office.
yeah, and the walls aren't like completely connected. So like you have aluminum here, and then like disconnected below it, there's another piece of aluminum there.
Did they put glass between the gaps, or can people just kind of like fall out of the side of the building?
I'm not entirely sure. I mean, if people were falling out, I don't think it would be an office.
What a murder plot.
I don't think
Horror
that'd be
movie.
necessarily like somebody would have
Definitely not code for anything.
Yeah,
Like, it
no,
was just-
there's definitely regulations for those kinds of stuff.
Oh,
so,
definitely.
You know.
Definitely. I remember there's one general education building, which has there's a general education building where it's like I can't remember if it's octagons or hexagons that are stacked on top of each other. And for some ungodly reason, they decided that this was a good idea, and it just kind of looks stupid. Like, it just looks like pancakes stacked on top of each other. Like, it's not cute. I don't know, they were like, we're gonna do something really cool here.
Yeah,
we're gonna make a hexagonal building. And then it looks, well, this is definitely just an opinion, but
Yeah, somebody thought it was cool.
I mean,
somebody
somebody
thought it-
had to think it was cool
I
in
mean-
order to build it.
Yeah, and that's what you see a lot with the like postmodern brutalism type
Yeah,
architecture.
yeah,
It's like it's
yeah,
all
it's just a
sharp
square.
corners.
Yep.
It's all very bland, gray,
Yes.
concrete,
Minimalistic.
glass.
the
The only color is blue.
Yeah,
Like,
dude, literally one of the main like fashion marketing buildings is just like a square.
Yeah.
It's just a square with like a courtyard.
A cube, like a cube.
Basically, it might as well be a
crazy.
cube. It's like maybe
It's
it
so
has
boring.
it's just
That's
like
what we're turning towards
Yeah,
in
to
century,
each
like minimalism and everything.
yeah,
'Cause
with
it's
like
also-
glass
it's
and
efficient.
concrete and yeah, it's the same thing with fast fashion, fast everything. The world is moving faster than we can keep up, and so
Yeah.
therefore the architecture is moving towards a faster. Like obviously, it took a long time to build like the cathedral, and so that's why there's so much ungodly details in every single thing. So then that's why it took like 50 years to get any of those sort of, probably more than like 100 years to get
And I
those sort
mean-
of buildings. And now we're like, oh, we can build this entire skyscraper in a year. We got that. We
Yeah,
got
and
that.
you're also like you're talking about like back then you had like artisans, you had like handcrafted stuff.
Yeah.
Nowadays it's a lot more of like
Mass-produced.
mass production of like bricks and everything, and then you get this shipment in, you have your crew of guys, and they try to do it as fast as possible. And
Yep.
even if it's done correctly, it's not gonna have as much detail or as much work put into
yeah,
it.
yeah. I do kind of want to talk about the train station though.
Okay.
The train station in Richmond.
The one that has the giant glass
Yeah,
on top,
yeah.
that one is pretty cool.
But so yeah, it's really funny because every time we used to drive into Richmond, we used to see the tower
That
and
giant
then
clock.
the giant clock,
I've
and
seen
then
that so much.
yeah.
That's like my childhood.
It's exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So I kind of wanted to talk about that in kind of the childhood and growing up around Richmond. Obviously, Kira,
I mean, I have a
And, like,
different
seeing-
perspective to offer of just like
That's
going in and being like, wow, this is so cool, and it all looks new. It doesn't have like a nostalgic value, whereas different places for me will obviously have that
yeah.
effect.
So just so you guys know, Kira is not from Virginia.
New
You can
Jersey.
talk about-
Yeah, I'm from New Jersey, like central New Jersey, so very different types of climates and kind of just like everything is decently different. I mean, it's not that different. We're still in America. We're still like
Yeah.
only a couple hours apart.
Yeah.
But there is different.
I mean, it's a
No
different
worries.
environment.
Yeah.
And you moved here in
Few
eighth
years-
grade?
2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
Summer of 2019 between 7th and 8th grade.
Okay.
So it's been 4 years-ish now. And I've been into Richmond a lot, especially when I got injured in freshman year,
Yeah.
going back and forth
Yeah.
to that VCU all the time.
Yep.
I drove by that clock tower almost every day for like 3 months straight.
Yeah.
So I do know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
but yeah, we used to drive by that tower so often. My sister, when she was really little, I don't know why, but every time we go by the clock tower, my mom is always like, "Oh, when your sister was little, she used to think that was Disneyland," and every time it's just like clockwork, literally.
Yeah, but like every time. So every year we would go on a like vacation and to my grandma in Pennsylvania, and like my sister and I would like always wait for passing the tower, like
Yeah.
look at the dragon or
Yeah.
whatever the heck
Yeah,
that was.
the gargoyle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and that's the neoclassic style that Roki was talking about. It's literally just like a probably like a print copy from something in in Europe.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, and even just like I remember going, because I have had family in Virginia my entire life, so I remember going on road trips from New Jersey to Virginia, especially looking for houses, going to and back in one day, a lot of driving, and always looking forward to passing different buildings along the route, not
Yeah.
even in Richmond, but like going past DC and seeing
Yeah.
the Needle and all of
DC
the
is
different
great.
places, and how they pull from other
Yeah,
places, like
definitely.
what is it called? The Washington Monument is taken
Yes.
from like
Yes.
Egyptian
Yeah,
architecture and stuff
exactly.
like that in like other places too.
Which
and I
was-
just remember always looking forward to it and being like, oh, I know exactly where we are because we just passed this building and the clock tower being
Richmond
one of those
Richmond
things.
is really cool. Obviously, Washington D.C. has a lot of like really modern stuff, and at least really modern materials. I feel like there's a
Yeah.
lot more modern.
It's very
things.
clean look.
Yeah. And Richmond, well, Richmond's kind of dirty, but
Yeah.
it's
That's like
totally,
every city, though.
It's
That's
Yeah,
every
totally-
it's just a city.
Yeah, it's just a city. But I feel like Richmond is again just like it's got so much in it. Like I've seen anywhere from like abandoned buildings that look like warehouses to like full on glass like structures, and you
Yeah.
have all the different art, and you have those weird like brutalist buildings, and then you have all the VCU buildings which are kind of integrated into everything.
Yeah.
And kind of just like they don't really it's not really a harmonious
I mean-
structure. It's kind of just like
Especially for such a small city, it's all compacted into what is comparatively like such a small city.
yeah.
Yeah.
That like it's so weird that like they managed to fit everything in there, so
Yeah.
it makes it feel even less like harmonious because
Yeah.
it's so much conflicting
You
styles
turn
in
the
such a
corner,
small space.
Turn the corner, and I mean,
It's like my brain.
but
Just
yeah,
driving on West Broad Street, like you can see the Science Museum of Virginia with like that's pretty cool architecture.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's giant columns, like every.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
they have like some weird piece of art right
yeah,
in the
yeah,
courtyard or
yeah.
something.
And then the VMFA is sort of contrasting, and then it's really modern. It has so much class. It has
Yeah.
so much like. But then you have like the ponds, and there's a lot of different like architecture things with the stairs and the waterfall and the stairs, and then they have fountains, and then they have like a garden area.
Yeah, and then you drive like 5 minutes away, and it's like just weird stuff, like all these broken buildings.
Yeah.
a bunch of brick.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
hate brick. Like just brick buildings.
I think you're just biased. I don't know.
Well, yeah.
Don't you want to? What about pokey brick?
I hate Virginia Tech.
Oh,
Well,
Sorry.
But
okay.
the gray limestone is so pretty.
No.
It's all personal opinion. It's very subjective.
Yeah.
He's
But
just wrong.
okay.
he's just wrong.
You're just wrong.
No.
Hey,
I
what
feel
did we
like-
say about no bullying?
That's true. That's true. I'm sorry.
I
promise I don't hate you.
I feel like it also speaks to how fast, like, I feel like Richmond has gone through a lot of different epicenters of history, especially
Yes.
wars with.
Yes.
It was kind of a hub for the Revolutionary War, not as much as like when you get further north, you get to more of those types
Yeah.
of hubs.
Yeah.
That's the
Massachusetts
That's the
or-
history that I grew up with was
Yeah.
like the Revolutionary War battles, whereas
Yeah.
here you get a lot more of the Civil War history.
Yeah.
And Richmond went through so many different changes and so many different like types of people taking over and types of architecture that it kind of was like pushed through like rapid evolution
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
architecturally. I feel like that kind of contributed to just like the amalgamation of different styles that's in there.
Yeah, which I think is really telling of the relationship between America and Europe, because so much of Europe is very slow. Like a lot of things in Europe are very, very slow.
Much more relaxed than America, always trying to be like, go, 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 get this done, get
Well,
this done.
well, then you come across like the American dream, and always like
Yeah.
I'll raise it in the sun.
Yeah.
Death of a salesman.
yes, and always trying to work towards more and better things. Which also comes with the I'm never happy with anything.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's the
But
same
like,
thing.
Like the mental health of Europe is just enormously better than.
Yeah, if you look at statistics, yeah, it's literally, it's a really weird thing.
I mean, like, and it's also, this is also really political, but like, it also contributes to like the capitalistic nature of all of America, of just
Yeah.
always pushing for like the next big thing, the next
Exactly.
innovation, all of this stuff that really
Social
just
media.
pushes people to
Yeah.
always feel like they have to be doing
Yeah.
more. And you even see that on social media nowadays with like the like toxic positivity and always being on that grind, bro. Like it's always that's how I always see it written out, of always people always feeling like they need to be doing more. Like no matter what they're doing, they're never doing enough, and they'll never be able to like actually
Yeah.
achieve.
and I feel like
That.
the jumble in Richmond is definitely like, I feel like it's Richmond trying to keep up with other more modern cities and like, but also trying to conserve what Richmond has, and so it's like that's why it's so jumbled.
It's so
Like
conflicting.
being modern, but also like not being modern, and then it.
And then VCU in the very center.
Oh
of
yeah,
it,
and then
which
there's
is like-
VCU.
Yeah.
It ends up just being a weird combination of things that just don't go together.
Definitely.
So, I mean, a lot of this conversation kind of centered around like American exceptionalism and like rapid evolution and kind of always pushing to go faster
And how that influenced the architecture
Yeah.
in Virginia.
and how that influenced the architecture and like art is like a reflection of the mindset of the people around it. And that was kind of
Definitely.
just the discussion that we had today. So that's going to be all for today's episode.
Thank you, Rohit.
Thank you,
Yep.
Rohit, for
Yeah.
your topic and giving us something to work with
Yes,
with those
yes.
talking points. It was honestly pretty interesting because I didn't know much
Yeah,
about.
we had a
Yeah.
very interesting conversation about
Yeah.
architecture. It's
Yeah,
kind
thanks
of
for
crazy.
like expanding on everything.
And all the
Yeah.
different like
Cool.
connections that you can make
Yeah.
with
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot
everything.
to talk about.
And yeah, that was today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed
Yeah.
listening and
Hopefully it was
return for the other
entertaining.
episodes. The other episodes, we have some other interesting stuff coming up too. So
Stay tuned.
you should listen
Oh,
to that
yeah.
too.
Cool.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.